Now, first of all, I have to say that I miss you too. I do. First of all, look, I'm not alone in saying I enjoy coming to Las Vegas. Other Americans also enjoy coming to Vegas. You can get anything you want right here in Vegas. Some things you shouldn't want. A lot of things that are good for you. Outstanding food, great shows, you name it. And then we brought some shows here today. You know what? Who doesn't love salt and pepper? Come on. Who doesn't love J Balvin and reggaeton? I was backstage. Fortunately, there were no cameras going when I was jamming. So Las Vegas is known for its hospitality. It's known for its spirit of fun. It's known for its outstanding people. It's known for its sunny weather. But there's one other thing that I want Las Vegas and all of Nevada to be known for, and that is for voting. I want this to be the capital of voting. I'm here just to get one thing from you, and that is for you to vote. Look, this November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot. That's saying something. Politicians say every time, oh, this is the most important election. This one's really that important. The stakes are high. The consequences of anybody here not turning out and doing everything you can to get your friends, neighbors, family to turn out, the consequences of you staying home would be profoundly dangerous to this country, to our democracy. We've had challenging moments before. Democracy has never been easy. Our founders argued about everything. We waged a civil war for freedom. We overcame a Great Depression. We had to fight for women's rights and workers' rights and civil rights and immigrants' rights and LGBT rights. And there have been times where we went into eras of conservative retrenchment, and we had to fight that much harder for progressive change. And the good news is that the trajectory of America has been one of progress. But that progress didn't happen by itself. It didn't happen automatically. It was made by folks like you. It wasn't made by folks who sat back and let history just kind of happen. It was made by ordinary Americans who marched and mobilized and voted to make history happen. It was made by students heading south for Freedom Rise. It was made by union workers deciding we are going to collectively bargain to have a better future. It was made by people who took risks, and they didn't get their name up in lights, but they knew they were doing the right thing, if not for themselves, then at least for their kids. And every 2 steps forward that we took, sometimes we've taken a step back. You know, you win the right to create a union, and then suddenly folks come up with new ways to try to bust unions. You win a higher minimum wage, then Congress doesn't raise the minimum wage for a decade. You win the right to vote, people try to take it away. Every time we have gotten closer to our ideals, a country that recognizes that all people are created equal, that we're all endowed with certain unalienable rights by our Creator. Every time we have tried to make that manifest, make that real, the status quo is pushed back. The powerful, the privileged, they fight hard to keep what they got. And they like to try to divide us. And they try to make you cynical because that helps them keep power and keep their privileges. And we're in one of those moments right now. We all recognize it. Look, we didn't get here overnight. The world's going through big changes, economic changes, demographic changes, technological changes. It's challenged who we are and what we stand for and how we adapt to these new circumstances. And the fact is that some of these challenges are big and they're tough and they're hard, and we haven't addressed all those challenges. And so what happens is people get scared, and when they get scared, you see backlash against progress. When I walked into office 10 years ago, we were in the middle of the worst economic crisis of our lifetimes. That was the last time that the other party was in charge of things. I do think it's interesting. I just hope people kind of notice that every time there's a pattern where they run things into the ground and we have to come back and clean things up and then. But Nevada was hit as hard as any place. Everybody here remembers. Well, not everybody, because some of you guys are really young. Those of you who are older than 15 remember, sort of. But because of the work we did, working with people like Harry Reid, who I love, we got the economy growing again. We started the longest streak of job creation on record. We covered another 20 million people on health insurance. We brought housing back here in Nevada. We cut our deficits by more than half, partly by making sure the wealthiest Americans, folks like me, paid their fair share of taxes. So by the time I left office, wages were rising, uninsurance rate was falling, poverty was falling, and that's what I handed off to the next guy. So when you hear all this talk about economic miracles right now, remember who started it. Remember who started it. Come on. Now, that's important to remember. Now listen, though, the fact is, even for all we did, we couldn't reverse 40-year trends in only 8 years. Because part of what happened is Republicans took over Congress. They then decided to block everything I tried to do. Everything. Even stuff they used to support. They didn't support it. Now, suddenly they support it again. So we pulled the economy out of crisis, but you still had people who were struggling. You still had people who once felt solidly middle class and now felt more insecure because of technology and loss of manufacturing jobs and globalization. All that stuff was still going on. And that was just here in the United States. Overseas, we took out bin Laden. And we wound down the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we got Iran to halt its nuclear program. But there were still a lot of threats out there, and that made people nervous. And so with all these challenges, a lot of folks started feeling, you know what, change doesn't happen fast enough. And people felt maybe nobody was looking out for them. And then there was all this money being pumped into campaigns by these big billionaire PACs who were trying to say, you know what, the Democrats, they don't really think like you or look like you or believe the same things you do. And we've seen that playbook before. And so people got cynical. And Republicans in power want you to feel cynical. They want you not to vote. Instead of addressing the challenges that exist, they exploit some of the history that we have in this country of racial and ethnic and religious divisions. And they try to get people angry, you know? And they appeal to tribe, and they appeal to fear, and they try to pit one group against another. And they tell us that order and security is going to be restored as long as we don't let those people take over, the people who don't look like us or sound like us or pray like we do. They start talking about real Americans as if some of us aren't real Americans. No. I mean, it's an old playbook. And you see that the closer we get to Election Day, the more you're seeing folks resort to that. Now, in a healthy democracy, that kind of stuff doesn't work. Because what happens is people of goodwill in both parties start calling out bigots and fear-mongers, and they work to compromise, and they work to get things done. The practical solutions caucus, you know, starts kicking in. But when there's a vacuum in our democracy, when we don't vote, when we take our rights for granted, when we turn the other way to politics because we think it's ugly and messy and we don't want to hear it, that's when the voices fill in the void, other voices. And demagogues start promising simple fixes to complicated problems. And they promise to fight for the little guy, and then they turn around and are helping corporations and billionaires and the most powerful do their bidding. And they'll pledge to take on corruption, and then they just plunder away. And they start undermining some of the institutions that are essential to our democracy. They make it harder for young people and minorities and the poor to vote. And that entrenches their power further. There are states where Republicans are actively purging voter rolls right now, where they have tried to say that students and college students operate under different rules than others and make it harder for them to vote. And look, I have to say that this kind of politics, it's not actually conservative. It's radical. It's a vision that says we're going to protect our power no matter what, even if it hurts the country. We're going to divide the country and make everybody angry, even though we know that's not actually going to help create jobs or put food on the table or pay the rent or make sure that health care is protected. It's a vision where the few people who can afford those high-priced lobbyists and unlimited campaign contributions, they set the agenda. And rather than be a check or a balance on this kind of corrupt politics, you've got Republicans in Congress who bend over backwards to shield it from scrutiny and accountability and consequence, just like Jacky was saying. The current senator, he doesn't seem to be willing to stand up to this. He just goes along, even when you get a sense that he knows it's not right. But it's okay. He just goes ahead and goes along. So that's the moment we're in. But here's the good news, Nevada. Right now, we've got a chance to restore some sanity to our politics. Right now, we can tip the balance of power back to you, the American people. Because ultimately, there's only one real check on abuses of power. There's only one real check on bad policy, and that is you and your vote. You. And you know, the great thing in Nevada, you don't have to wait 2 weeks. You can go ahead and vote right now. In Nevada, early voting is already underway. You can vote at any early voting site in your community. If you don't know where that is, just go to votenvdems.com. Find out where you can vote. So there's no reason to overcomplicate stuff. Sometimes I think Democrats do just like they're analyzing stuff. Just vote. And if you don't think it's important to vote, look at what the Republicans have done these past 2 years. Look at what they're saying they're going to do if you send them back to do more. Here's just one simple fact. This is a fact. This is not, unlike some, I actually try to state facts. I believe in facts, right? I believe in a fact-based reality and a fact-based politics. I don't believe in just making stuff up. I think you should actually say to people what's true. So here's what's true. They handed out $1.5 trillion in tax cuts aimed at billionaires and corporations. You know what? It was not done for you. 1.5 trillion. They didn't even pretend to pay for it. Deficits shot up. When I was president and I was trying to fund early childhood education or trying to fund infrastructure, they would say, no, we can't do that. Deficits are too high. It's an existential crisis. Then suddenly, when it comes to giving $1.5 trillion for folks who are already sitting pretty, don't need it, weren't even asking for it, suddenly deficits are no problem. Don't even try to pay for it. Don't pretend to pay for it. Except just last week, the leader of the Republicans in Congress.
And we've been listening to former President Barack Obama at a campaign rally in Las Vegas in support of Nevada Democrats, chief among them Jacky Rosen, who is running against GOP incumbent Senator Dean Heller. And we heard President Trump campaign for Heller, on Saturday when the president was in Nevada. Lots of feverish campaigning going on right now with midterms right around the corner. The former president blasted the current administration for many things, including fear-mongering and pitting groups against each other. We're going to have much more on this on the other side of the break, so stay with us. You're watching CBSN.